Adventure Land in Lenox Baptist Church, October 11th. We finally got some rain today. Kind of drizzled all day and going to do it all night. Well, praise God, we'll take anything. It's been 3 months since we got anything. Okay, we're the folks who believe the Bible is true. You can catch us on Rumble, on Genesis Baptist Church on YouTube, on Odyssey, and more places on Dr.Dino.com. Call us if you need anything, 855 BIG-DINO. I'm extension 3. Be glad to talk with you. If I don't answer the phone, it's because I'm busy talking to somebody else on the phone or giving a tour. Or it's a busy life around here. Or taking a tree down like yesterday. Okay. Anyway, but God said, let not your heart be deceived. Don't be deceived. Don't be deceived. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. Whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. You've been deceived. Romans chapter 1 talks about that. So, because that when that which may be known of God is manifest in them, God has showed it to them. The invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen. You can see from the creation there's a creator. Some of the atheists, or claim they're atheists, just don't get it. We're going to help them tonight with our Whack an Atheist game, okay? The Bible says they're without excuse. Oh, let's see. Professing themselves to be wise, and boy, do they think they are smart. This guy tonight needs two of them I'm going to get tonight. They both think they're real smart. I'll whack them. I'll debate it. Either one of them, both of them together. Half my brain tied behind my back, okay? God gave them up. God gave them up. He gave them up. Gave them over. That's pretty sad. Now, I want to thank Steve Ireland for calling my attention to this. Zephaniah chapter 2, one of the last books of the Old Testament. Zephaniah 2. Gaza shall be forsaken. Ashkelon, a desolation. They shall drive out Ashdod at the noonday, and Ekron shall be rooted up. Woe to the inhabitants of the seacoast, the Cherethites, which are another name for the Philistines. The word of the Lord is against you, O Canaan, land of the Philistines. I will even destroy you, that there be no inhabitant. Wait. Is Gaza going to be completely empty of people? That's a prophecy in the book of Zephaniah. We shall see. For those who don't know their geography, the earth is round, by the way. There's a spot right over here called the Middle East. There's a bunch of countries over there surrounding a little tiny country called Israel. Let's see, we got Lebanon, Syria, Iraq. Everybody around them hates them and wants their territory. By the way, Israel's about the size of New Jersey. That makes it about this big. They're all fighting over that little bitty spot, the size of New Jersey. There's Israel. Now, in the corner, lower left corner of Israel, there's a little bitty strip of land called the Gaza Strip. There it is. As of today, population estimated to be 2.3 million people. Zephaniah said, going to be uninhabited. We shall see. I don't know. Anyway, this current conflict did not start Saturday. This current conflict started 3,400 years ago. God gave that land to the Jews, the whole thing from the Euphrates River down to the Nile River, okay? That's the promised land. They've never had it all yet. They will, okay? God told Moses to take the people out of Egypt. We've been studying the book of Exodus. After 40 years of wandering around, because men don't ask directions, they finally got into the promised land, and God told Joshua to conquer it. And the children of Israel under Joshua conquered a bunch of the land, and then Joshua's successor took over, and they did not finish the job. Finishing that job would have been taking over everything. They didn't do the job. They're still fighting it today, 3,400 years later, because somebody didn't do their job 3,400 years ago. Anyway, study the history in the Bible to understand what's going on there. Okay, Dinosaur Adventure Land and Baptist Church Camp, Science Center, where God gets the glory for his creation, straight north of Pensacola, 70 miles. Come visit us right there. We believe that evolution religion is stupid, capital S, stupid. 140 acres, you can come see, God gets the glory. We have all kinds of science lessons and spiritual lessons. It's a blast around here. So here we are, October 11th with Dave Farina again and Forrest Valkai again. Prager University. Okay. Help us stay open for free. Join our 777 club. Go to Dr.Dino.com if you want to help us. We don't charge anything, never have. Lord willing, never will. So you can help us with our Whack an Atheist Wednesday, a fun game we play at DAL. It's based on the whack-a-mole game. Atheist sticks his head up, says something dumb, we whack him back down. Okay? They stick their head up, atheists stick their head up, whack them down as fast as you can. Kids learn to play whack-a-mole and love it. Adults love it. We wait for an atheist to stick his head up and say something silly. That is, evolution religion has got some science behind it, and we whack them back down sweetly in Christian love. Let's see, take real science and whack their imagination, SpongeBob, back down where he belongs. Okay. Few people learn to keep their head down. Some of the hard-headed ones haven't learned yet. Got to whack them again and again. Forrest Valkai, excellent teacher in some areas, is determined to push his religion on us mixed with science. He said, oh, Forrest, question everything. Okay, Forrest, let's question everything, including your evolution religion, and it is a religion. Let me play just a little bit of Forrest here, give you an example. Oh, right there.
Let's describe confirmation bias and how if I choose to believe that most cars are red and I start going out and looking for red cars, the more I keep looking for them, the more I'll keep seeing them.
And you have chosen to believe in evolution. And the more you look at the evidence, the more you see it fitting your theory. You're doing exactly confirmation bias, Forrest.
Until eventually I am solid in my belief that most cars are red. When at the end of the day, that's not how thinking works. That's not how actual science works.
Correct. And same with evolution. Real thinking and real science would say, look, there's a bunch of dead animals in the ground we call fossils. Okay? But you've already decided evolution's true, and you look at those fossils as evidence for your theory. I look at those same fossils and say, wow, this thing died fast, got buried fast, looks like Noah's flood. Now, you got the confirmation bias, Forrest. I'll debate you any day of the week, any day. Bring it on.
We need to go count all the cars and figure out what's actually there. But the more you look for one color, the more you'll see that color, and the more you'll believe it. And that is exactly what you're describing, and that is a terrible way to figure out whether something is true or not.
Amen. You described yourself to a T. Let me show a couple more quick clips here. Shut that one down and go to, what is this one? Put it full screen for a second, brother. Not the dad jokes. Those are hilarious. Confirmation bias. Is this it? Oh, no. Well, we'll go to this one then. Pager University. I was going to play one of Professor Dave. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to hit that again. Let's see. He's going to be talking about, let's see, Forrest, right here.
Welcome back to Reaction, everybody. I'm going to be honest with you. This episode takes a turn that I did not expect it to take when I started it, so buckle in. It's going to be a wild ride. I was recently asked to respond to an interview with Dr. Stephen Meyer from the Discovery Institute on the Joe Rogan Experience. Now, I've responded to a clip from Stephen Meyer before on this channel. He's a creationist whose favorite trick is to liken DNA to computer code.
His favorite trick is to liken DNA to computer code. Forrest, computer code only has 2 zeros and ones. DNA has 4, CATG. I think there's a lot more complexity to computer code, and it's a good illustration. But you bypass this like you've already decided evolution is true. Is somebody paying you to believe that and teach that? I don't know. But it's not true. Nobody sees, and he mentions our DNA code degrades, and it's always negative, and he's right. And you are wrong, Forrest, but let's play it anyway.
The chemical subunits that run along the interior of the twisting double helix molecule, they're called nucleotide bases, so that these bases are functioning like alphabetic characters in the written language, or like the zeros and ones, the digital characters that we use in software today. The chemical subunits that run along the interior of the famed double helix, they're called bases or nucleotide bases. He realized that they were functioning like alphabetic characters in written text, or like zeros and ones in the section of software. If you want to give your computer a new functionality, a new function, what do you have to give it? And of course, they knew code. You have to give it information. And the same thing is true in life.
And say that because computer code has to come from a programmer, DNA has to come from God.
So when we see information in a digital form in software, or we see a paragraph in a book, we see information in a software program, or in a hieroglyphic inscription, or a paragraph in a book, or information embedded in a radio signal, information, whether inscribed in hieroglyphics, written in a book, or encoded in a radio signal, and we trace that information back to its source, we always come to a mind, not a material process. And we trace it back to its source, we always come to a mind, always arises from an intelligent source. It does indeed take intelligence to generate informational sequences. Information, especially in an alphabetic or digital form, always comes from an intelligent source. The creation of new information is habitually associated with conscious activity. Systems with digital information invariably arise from intelligence. And when we see that information is the foundation of life, that is to say, the kind of information present in DNA, the discovery of information at the foundation of life, we can infer that the best explanation for the origin of that information is in fact also a mind. Is also a striking appearance of design, provides strong grounds for inferring that a designing intelligence played a role in the origin of life.
And because you can't randomly change computer code to make better software, you can't randomly change DNA to make better organisms.
Bingo, you're slowly getting it, but you're not believing it. Let's see. I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you, Forrest. Okay? Maybe there's no hope, but I'm going to try anyway. Maybe some of your listeners have a half a brain cell still working, and they will understand this is a good analogy, and DNA is far superior to any computer code we've ever done. Let's let Forrest rabble here.
Random changes in a section of functional code or functional information is going to degrade that information long before you ever get to something fundamentally new. Information in DNA is also essentially typographic or digital, and there are far more ways to go wrong in arranging those characters than there are ways to go right. If you're a computer programmer, you know that if you start randomly changing the sections of functional code, you're going to degrade that code long before you ever come up with a new program or operating system. And the same thing applies in the biological case, because the information in DNA is essentially digital or typographic. There are far more ways to arrange those A's, C's, G's, and T's along the DNA molecule that will result in gibberish than will result in functional information capable of building a new protein.
All statements that can be easily and thoroughly debunked by anybody who knows anything about either computer programming or evolution.
You are absolutely insane, Forrest. I'm calling you stupid on this topic, okay? Call me out. Anybody who knows anything about computers knows he's right. You cannot degrade the code without something going wrong. You don't improve the code by making random changes. You are wrong, Forrest. Let's see here. Oh. He goes to an advertisement there.
All living forms have evolved from one single common ancestor.
So immediately, he's attempting to split hairs between microevolution and macroevolution. We've talked about these terms before, but remember, microevolution is small genotypic changes within a population of one species, and macroevolution is large phenotypic changes above the species level that we see throughout the fossil record.
There's no such thing as a fossil record, Forrest. You're going to mention this a bunch of times in this video. What you think saves your stupid theory is the fossil record, which does not exist, and the geologic column, which does not exist. Why don't we see it happening today? You're going to say, well, it happened long ago in the fossil record. No, stop. Show it to me today. We'll get into that in a minute.
Macroevolution is caused by microevolution.
And you are insane for believing such a thing, okay? Microevolution is a lousy term. We shouldn't use it, but they do. It means variations within the same kind. That's all we've ever seen. If you think that adds up to macroevolution, you're dreaming. You are imagining that it happens. It's not observable. It's not science, Forrest.
But unfortunately, even though those are actual biological terms, they're so loaded that there are lots of people out there that believe that they are only creationist terms. So by eschewing the word macroevolution for the phrase universal common descent, he's making this whole argument just a little bit more palatable for the people watching who might not already be created.
He's making it a little more understandable for people that got a functioning brain cell, Forrest. I don't know if you got one left.
And in my experience of doing call-in shows and whatnot where we talk to creationists, that kind of language is a lot more effective than phrases like macroevolution. Because now all of a sudden, this is personal. We're not just talking about dinosaurs and fossils and stuff. We're talking about universal common descent. That means that you came from a fish. What?
Do you believe you're related to a fish, Forrest? Do you believe all the plants and animals and insects in the whole world have a common ancestor? Yes, you do. That is exactly why everybody with half a brain thinks it is stupid. That's not science. It's not observable.
What? And it also sounds a lot harder to prove because
It's impossible to prove this common ancestry. Watch, you're going to go back to the fossil record again. No animals today are capable of doing what you claim these fossils could do. No animals can do it.
well, the big changes in the fossil record are
There is no fossil record, Forrest. Get that out of your vocabulary.
undeniable to anybody who's ever seen the fossil record.
There is no fossil record, Forrest.
How can these scientists know what the family trees of animals that lived 10 million years ago actually look like? How can they really prove that all life is related? Genetics. Genetic.
Genetics doesn't prove any such thing. It proves that dogs always make dogs. Cows always make cows. That's all it proves. If you wish to imagine anything other than that, that's your religion. Keep it at home, please.
This is how we prove that. And also homology and embryology. And also
Embryology. You still using Haeckel's argument for us? Shame on you. Proven wrong in 1874. Get up to speed, son.
logic, but mainly genetics.
I'm profoundly skeptical about chemical evolution, the idea that the non-living chemicals in a prebiotic ocean or prebiotic soup arrange themselves to form the first living cell.
So again, the word choice is incredibly important. Chemical evolution is the formation of complex organic molecules from simple inorganic molecules through natural processing.
There's no such thing as a simple molecule for us to start with, but going from molecules to living organisms is a giant leap. Going from a pile of metal to a running car is a giant leap. Takes a lot of intelligence to make all those parts go together and work, doesn't it? It's not just simple molecules for us. Word choice is important. Listen to your own vocabulary here.
It's something that we not only have tremendous amounts of evidence for,
Oh, you have evidence that life started from non-living material? Tremendous amounts of evidence? Quit blabbing and show it to me. I want to see it happen.
but it's something that we literally watch happen in laboratory settings.
You watch life come from non-living material in laboratory tests. Forrest, you are lying.
What he's talking about, non-living chemicals arranging themselves to form the first living cell, that's abiogenesis, and that's a totally different thing.
Yeah, you want to leave that out of your argument, don't you? You want to start with something living and then talk about evolution. Getting something living is a major step. You don't just pass that up. It hasn't been answered yet. And until then, you don't have a good theory. If I said, well, if elephants could fly, let's just imagine, stop. Elephants can't fly. Everything else after that's null and void. All of your evolution arguments are null and void. You can't get matter from nothing, and you can't get life from non-living chemicals. You're done. Argument's over. But you want to skip those two steps, don't you? I know why.
May seem like I'm being overly nitpicky here.
Yeah, you are.
Like we all know what he meant, right? But the problem with him conflating these two terms is that it makes the whole process seem a lot more fantastical than it actually is.
You're the one inflating the whole process, and it is fantastic. You think a strawberry and a banana and a pine tree and forest are related to an amoeba and came from an amoeba? It does sound fantastic, Forrest. I don't believe it. I don't think most people with a functioning brain cell believe it either.
It would be like me describing the invention of computers as a pile of metal being arranged in such a way that it can do math.
That's a good illustration. Is a pile of metal able to form itself into a computer and do math? No. Is a pile of molecules able to form themselves into a living cell? One cell in your body is more complex than the space shuttle, and you probably have 100 trillion cells in your body. And the DNA code to make all those cells, they've calculated, if you took one person's DNA out of every cell, unwound it, stretched them out, tied them all together, it would go across the solar system twice. That's just the code. And you think you're going to rearrange that by random mutations and make something new and better? Shame on you.
That's technically not wrong, but it's certainly not going to inspire any confidence about the potential of computing. The truth is, when you talk about chemical evolution and abiogenesis, if you just dig a little bit into our actual understanding of all of this stuff, it becomes a lot harder to just gloss over it the way that he just did. So we're going to do that now. Follow along with me, because there's a lot of vocab coming up, but it's not nearly as difficult as it sounds, and we're only going to cover the most essential parts, okay? There are 4 major macromolecules that make up life, and those are proteins, lipids, carbohydrates, and nucleic acids. Proteins are made from amino acids. There are about 20 of those that are essential for life on Earth, but there are many, many more of them that are possible. Lipids are made of a couple different things, but mainly what are called fatty acids, which generally look like long chains of carbon atoms surrounded by hydrogen atoms with what's called a carboxyl group on the end. Carbohydrates are made of sugars, and just like with amino acids, there are lots and lots of different kinds of sugars that can all go together to make a carbohydrate. One sugar molecule by itself, like glucose, fructose, or ribose, is called a monosaccharide, meaning one sugar. Two sugars connected together, like lactose, sucrose, or maltose, is called a disaccharide, literally two sugars. And three or more sugars connected together, like glycogen, cellulose, or starch, is what we call a polysaccharide, which means many sugars. The blanket term for any one of those things is carbohydrate. And finally, there's the nucleic acids. Those are DNA and RNA in all of their various forms. Now, just like with lipids, nucleic acids are made of a couple of different things, but the most important part is what we call their nitrogenous bases. Those are the letters of your genetic code. And overall, there are 5 of those: adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine, and uracil. So to recap, there are 4 major macromolecules that make up all life on Earth. And each of those macromolecules has a unique subunit, a specialized building block that makes up that one thing. And here's the final nail in the coffin for anybody who doesn't believe in chemical evolution. We have found all of those subunits in space.
We found all of these subunits in space. Therefore, nobody made life. This is his logic. Now follow this.
We found sugars, we found fatty acids, we found...
You keep saying we found, we found. Is this you doing it, Forrest? Did you go up there and find all this? What do you mean we? Keep reading. Keep talking.
70 different kinds of amino acids. Remember, only 20 are necessary, and we found all 5 nitrogenous bases. So while some people may be skeptical of the chemical evolution experiments taking place here on Earth, there's nobody up there in space tweaking the knobs or fudging the numbers. The only reasonable explanation for finding those molecules in space is that they self-assembled in space.
Oh, brother. They can't self-assemble down here, but they can do it out in space. Do you drive a car on the highway?
Now, as for how those building blocks got started as life, that's a totally different story.
It's an important story. How those building blocks got started for life. You want to gloss over it, don't you? Skip right up to living things. It's a major, that's why I say there are 6 steps to evolution, 6 phases. Cosmic evolution, chemical, organic, stellar. It doesn't happen. You're dreaming, okay? You got to start with, you want to start with living things. I'm going to let you do that and still show you you're wrong.
That's what astrobiologists study, and they've made a ton of really exciting progress on that.
So they're making progress. Have they got an answer yet? If they can make life out in space, make it here in the laboratory. I want to see it happen. You're going to gloss over that and say, well, somebody else is working on that problem. No, you can't go past this. You can't touch second base till you touch first, Forrest. You missed first base. You're out.
Question over the past couple of decades. And even though we've still got a little ways left to go, as it stands, if we were to reduce the entire process from the most basic, simple, inorganic molecules all the way up to self-replicating, evolving life, down to like...
Self-replicating life does not mean evolving life, Forrest. Come on now, quit slipping that stuff together.
10 rhetorical steps. We would have steps 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, and 10. And creationists like Steve...
So they are missing a few steps, like where did the matter come from? How did life get started? I think that's pretty major steps. You missed first and second base, Forrest. You're out, okay?
Meyer like to pretend that not knowing step 4 or step 9 is the same thing as just not knowing anything about this at all, which he has a doctorate in the philosophy of science. He knows why you shouldn't do that. But most...
And you should know why you shouldn't do what you're doing, Forrest. You should know. You're skipping these steps because there is no logical answer, and you're claiming there's evidence for evolution when you're misdefining the term evolution. I don't think you know what it is. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Most importantly, when you learn about the history of discovery in both chemical evolution and astrobiology, it makes you realize that creationists have been using this exact same argument about step 3 before we knew what step 3 was. And then we learned what step 3 was, and so they moved on to step 4. And it kind of makes you wonder, what are they going to do in just a couple of decades when we filled in the rest of the gaps of our...
Well, you're claiming they're going to fill in those gaps. They're never going to. Where did matter come from? How did matter get started from nothing? You want to start with a dot of nothing exploding. You go on from there. You want to start with life coming in from soup in the ocean The chemicals don't assemble themselves into living things. A living thing is complex, Forrest. You should know that. Take some biology classes.
Or knowledge. But actually, people like Stephen Meyer answer that question for you all the time. Anytime we don't know something, you don't have any evidence for it, it's not provable, therefore God.
And your thinking is, we don't know how it happened, but until we do, we should teach it as science in a science class. Why don't you keep it out of the class until you got all the answers? It's not part of science. You don't see matter come from non-living, from non-matter, from nothing. You don't see life come from non-living material. So why are you insisting this be taught in the science class when it isn't science yet? Maybe it will be one day. Maybe in the future, 10 decades from now, they might get it. I know you have great faith, but right now it isn't science, Forrest.
And anytime you do know something, it's all too perfect and intricate, and it clearly shows design, therefore God.
You don't see design in anything. Do you see design in a coffee cup? Does this just happen? It's clay, baked clay.
The point is, there's still lots of things we don't know about the universe.
You are correct on that one. Finally, I can agree with you, Forrest. Lots of things you don't know about a lot of things, not just the universe.
There are tons of unanswered questions.
I agree, and I'm going to ask you some of them here in a minute.
In chemistry, in physics, and astronomy, and biology.
Well, until then, quit calling it science and forcing all the kids to learn it like it already happened.
That's what makes science so exciting.
I agree. Science is exciting. I taught it 15 years. Ask my students. We had a blast in my class. Probably still black spots on the ceiling from different things we did. Okay, never mind.
That's what gives it the potential that it has. But what kills that excitement and what squashes that potential is taking the stance that just because we don't know something already, the only reasonable explanation is magic.
Not magic. Is it magic that this cup is here? No, somebody designed it and made it out of clay and baked it in the oven and painted it. It's not magic. Quit calling God magic, okay? To say we see complexity everywhere we look, therefore there must have been a designer, that's not calling on magic, Forrest. Watch your words now. You said that at the beginning, I think.
And I'm also skeptical about the creative power of the mutation selection mechanism, which, as it happens, so are many leading evolutionary biologists today. I attended a conference in 2016 convened by the Royal Society. And it was convened by a group of evolutionary biologists who were essentially dissatisfied with neo-Darwinism, the standard textbook theory that we learn in all high school and college textbooks, and many of them were saying we need a new theory of evolution.
It's no secret that neo-Darwinian theory alone can't account for everything that we see in evolution. That's where things like epigenetics and neo-Lamarckian evolution come in. Now, as for this meeting, I wasn't there, so I can't say for sure what was or wasn't discussed, but I'm pretty confident that the leading evolutionary biologists in the world didn't all gather together to talk about how evolution doesn't make any sense.
No, they gathered together to find this theory isn't working. We got to save the theory, so let's come up with a new one. The idea of God didn't enter their mind. You've already decided nobody made the world, so now we just got to figure out how. And until we figure it out, we're going to teach it like it's science in the science class.
If I had to hazard a guess, I would bet good money that when they said we need a new theory of evolution, what they were actually saying is we need a new model to unify all these different things that we now know about it.
Yeah, we now know lots of things that life is impossible to get started from non-living material. The more they study, the deeper they get into the molecules and into the cells and the complexity, the more they realize Darwin's theory ain't working. Okay? So in your mind, the only choice is find another evolutionary theory to replace it. There isn't a third choice like maybe God did it. You're not even able to think outside your little box you could build around yourself.
And all these different evolutionary mechanisms all together into one new theory, not macroevolution isn't real.
The mutation selection mechanism does a good job of optimizing or modifying pre-existing forms. It can generate small-scale variation, but it does a very poor job of explaining the origin of those forms. Think about, for example, Darwin's finch beaks. Great job of explaining how variations in weather patterns result in changes in the shape and structure of the finch beaks. But that mechanism turns out not to do a good job of explaining the origin of birds or other major animal groups in the first place. So modification, yes. Innovation, no.
So this is an argument that we've come up against before. The idea that the modification of beaks, for example, doesn't explain the evolution of birds, and therefore the whole evolutionary model is somehow lacking.
It's not just the beaks and the birds, Forrest, it's everything. We see variations of dogs. People try to make that happen. Dog breeders try to select a certain trait that they want. But to then say it's not just beak shape, Forrest, it's everything. There's no evidence for evolution anywhere.
This makes no sense for several reasons. First of all, as we talked about back when Kevin Anderson made this exact same argument, of course the modification of a gene doesn't tell you a lot about the generation of a gene or the generation of a whole clade for that matter. By looking at gene modification, you're not asking questions about those other things, so you shouldn't expect to find an answer. Secondly, even if we didn't have any understanding on the formation of new genes or indeed new clades, which we super do, by the way, that wouldn't be any reason to be distrustful of the evolutionary model as a whole.
Why not? Why can't you your shirt says question everything. Forrest, question your own religion. You won't do that, will you? Guarantee you won't do that.
That would be like saying if we didn't know how the Earth formed, there would be no reason to believe in plate tectonics.
What? The Earth forming has nothing to do with plate tectonics. It's true. The Earth is busted up into plates, and they're sliding around, some of them, and making earthquakes and volcanoes. That's all true. Two options about that I know of. One, it's happening over billions of years, and two, maybe Noah's flood cracked up the Earth, and the plates are still settling in 4,400 years later. Are you willing to consider that? You want to question everything? Would you question your current evolutionary model of plate tectonics? Would you question that, Forrest?
Just because you don't understand the origins of a thing doesn't mean that you can't learn about the present dynamics of that thing.
I agree with that. We can learn all about the dynamics of life. That's why in biology class they should teach biology and leave origins completely out. Teach the kids all the bones and the muscles and the nerves and the tendons and the organs and their functions. Nothing to do with evolution. Nothing. You're so close, but you're not going to get it. I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you, Forrest.
Third, the only difference between any two organisms, no matter what taxa, is their DNA.
The only difference between an oak tree and an elephant is their DNA. Forrest, you know the difference between a dozen eggs and a dozen elephants? You don't, do you? We won't have you fix breakfast around here.
So if a gene is modified or duplicated or deleted within a population, that population is now going to be a slightly different flavor of organism than the rest of their species. And
that's called a variation of the same kind. That happens all the time. Is there new information ever added, Forrest? Does it change it? You think that process will change an amoeba to a whale over billions of years? You really believe that? That's what your charts show.
If those changes were to take place far upstream in a long genetic pathway...
Here we go. You're going to hide your religion with time. Well, given enough time, maybe over billions of years. This is why it isn't observable, Forrest. It's a religious belief. Keep it to yourself. Quit calling it science. You're imagining you got lots of time, which you don't have. You're imagining it'll change over time. Well, do it today.
You could dramatically change the phenotypic geography of a whole population of organisms practically overnight.
You said over a long period of time, you can do it overnight. Okay.
Fourth, taxonomy is not an immutable thing. Nature is what nature is, and our job as scientists is just to look for patterns in nature and draw little boxes around them.
Correct. Man has drawn little boxes around animals and said, these are the dog kind and these are the bird kind. The animals don't care how we classify them. This whole classification system is man-made, imposing our ideas onto nature. The plants don't care. Our cows show no interest whatsoever in the squirrels and making babies with them. None. They know what kind they are. They're not related.
Just because the box around birds is where it currently is, doesn't mean that nothing ever could have transitioned into or could ever transition out of that.
Well, you can imagine that all you want, Forrest, but where's the evidence? Has anybody ever seen a bird change to a non-bird? You imagine that reptiles, dinosaurs, turned to birds. That's imagination. That's not observable science, Forrest.
Fox. This is important to remember because creationists like to pretend that our human-made classification systems are like these eternal truths of the universe, and they just aren't. In fact, the discovery of things that defy or destroy our classification systems has kind of been the driving force of science for the past few centuries.
Well, let's destroy it one more time. God said they will bring forth after their kind. Show me animals that bring forth something that anybody would consider a different kind and can no longer bring forth.
And finally, fifth, we do have an explanation of where birds come from. They evolved from avian dinosaurs.
Now, I'll have to say that is stupid, Forrest, real stupid. Avian dinosaurs. Tell you what, call Standing for Truth. Let's you and me do a debate, Forrest. Where's the evidence for evolution? You're going to rely on a fossil to show that dinosaurs turned to birds? Fossils, all you know is they died.
That's not exactly a mystery. And even
It's a complete, it's a fairy tale you guys are telling. I got to hurry here.
if we didn't have a functional mechanism to explain that, all of the fossil and genetic and morphological evidence all points in that same direction.
All the fossil evidence, morphological, if you're talking about homology, the fact that we got similar bone structure, that points to a common designer, Forrest. You want to question everything? Would you question the assumption you made that because they're similar structure, therefore they're related? Would you question that and think maybe they got a common designer? You don't question everything. You've swallowed the stupid evolution lie, hook, line, and sinker.
So we would still know what happened even if we didn't know how.
You don't know what happened from looking at a fossil. Let me go back to one more thought here. Going too long, way too long already. Let's see. Coyote hybrid dog. So coyotes and dogs can interbreed. Are dogs, wolves, and coyotes related? Probably. This family tree they show your kids is one of the biggest lies in world history. This is in the textbook like it's part of science, okay? I agree. All 339 breeds of dogs probably had a common ancestor called a dog. God said they would bring forth after their kind. He said it a whole bunch of times, after their kind, after their kind, after their kind, after their kind. Apparently a dog and a coyote and a wolf are the same kind of animal. They're not the same kind as a tomato, Forrest, or a banana, or a pine tree. No, they're not the same kind. After their kind of every sort. I mean, it couldn't be more clear. Two of every sort go on the ark after their kind, after their kind. It's pretty clear from the scripture. God said they can bring forth. I predict plants and animals will always bring forth after their kind, just like God said. You know any exceptions to that? And before you run off on your stupid evolution rabbit trail and say, well, what's a kind, okay? What's exactly a species? I show 26 definitions of species on my program a few weeks ago. Nobody knows what a species is. This is all man's classification system. God said if they can bring forth, they're the same kind. Oh, well, there's a good way to classify them. Can they make a baby? Dogs and giraffes cannot. Can't do it. Protozoa turned to a biology teacher, that would be a fairy tale. If it happens quickly, it's a fairy tale. If it happens slowly, it's science. That's what you believe. I would agree. There are 339 breeds of dogs, big ones, little ones. I agree. I think a dog and a wolf can interbreed. They bring forth after their kind, after their kind. Yeah, Charles Darwin said the origin of species. He never did explain origin of species in his book, by the way. Let's see. The self-licking ice cream cone. I like that. He's lying. A coyote can mate with a dog. I agree. Coyote Australian Shepherd mix. Unusual hybrid canid. It's known that wolves in the eastern United States mate with coyotes. So wolves and coyotes can mate. Wolves and dogs can mate. Dogs and coyotes can mate. Oh, what do we have here? Let's see. Coyote meets wolf, the coy wolf. Okay, they got some up in Michigan. Interesting, okay. Coyote dog hybrid. Okay, well, I guess they can do it. Remember, God said they can bring forth. So apparently they're the same kind. 3 species, close to 40 subspecies of wolf. Okay. Wolves of the world. Here they are right there. The D-hole is a canid native to Central, South, and East Asia, Southeast Asia. Okay. Other English names for the species are the Asian wild dog, etc. So genus Canis is probably close to the biblical dog kind. Remember, these are boxes man is drawing around them to try to understand. The whole classification system is man imposing it on the animals. The animals don't care. They know what they want, okay? So we have decided to call them, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, right? The canid family, dog, wolf, coyote, apparently are the same kind. 19 subspecies of coyote. Wow, who'd have thunk it? Man has decided to divide living things into categories. The animals don't care how we classify them. They know what they're looking for, all right? Coyote meets wolf. 339 breeds of dogs. 78 chromosomes. The wolf, coyote, and jackal all have 78. Interesting. I bet they can't interbreed with humans. I'd bet $5 on that. Let's see. Dog, wolf, coyote, jackal, fox. Maybe they all come from a common ancestor. I wouldn't argue about that. But you want to say they're related to a tomato, don't you? Let's see. Do foxes and coyotes interbreed? Yep. This means they cannot interbreed. Different number of chromosomes. Foxes and coyotes. I don't know where the box should be drawn, Forrest, in every case. But God said if they can bring forth, they're the same kind. That's never been disproven. Let's see. 34 chromosomes in a sunflower and a fox. Well, that's proof they're related. And a porcupine. Yeah, there we go. And an artichoke. Sunflower, artichoke. Yeah, there you go. Porcupine. Obvious. Who can tell the difference? I mean, they all look the same, right? Humans have 46. So do some bugs. Let's see. So wolf, dog, coyote probably had a common ancestor. These guys can interbreed. They can interbreed. They can interbreed. They cannot, and they cannot. I'm trying to use pictures and small words for you, Forrest. Maybe you'll get it, okay? Is there a morphological limit on dog size? I think there is. Morphology, the branch of biology that deals with the form and structure. Is there a limit to dog size? How to breed dogs of different sizes? Let's see, there's Zeus, one of the world's biggest dogs. I'd say that's a pretty big dog. Zeus, Great Dane from Michigan, is the world's tallest dog. Okay. Zeus was 3'8" at the shoulder. Here's the world's smallest dog, 3.8 inches tall. Completely useless. Wouldn't survive 10 minutes out in the woods by itself. The squirrels would eat it, right? Let's see. Dude, is there a limit on dog size, Forrest? You see, today, 3.8 inches to 44 inches tall. Okay, is there a limit? Yes, there's a limit. Have they reached the limit yet? I don't know. They're probably getting close to the limit. I don't care. Probably getting close. Do you think they'll ever get a dog 8 miles tall or a half-inch tall? There are animals less than a half-inch tall, you know. Fleas, flies, a bunch of them. Whole bunch, way smaller than that. Why don't they get a dog? Is there a limit? All I'm asking, is there a limit? Yes, there's a limit. That's a pretty big dog there. Yep. You think all the dogs came from an amoeba millions of years ago. Yep, there we are. Let's see. The dog kind came from an amoeba along with a frog and birds. And let's see, they're birds and butterflies and octopus. You think you want this chart taught as science in a science class, don't you, Forrest? Time to question everything, including your evolution religion? Okay, let's question everything. Are you able to, or are you allowed to do that without losing your sponsors? Well, decoding the wolf diversity, 27 types of wolves, 14 amazing types of coyotes. I think these family trees with all the dogs and coyotes coming from a common ancestor, I think that's reasonable. That's probably science. There's an enormous body of observational scientific evidence to support that family tree. It's been seen. They make it happen. That's what dog breeders do. They see it happen. That's science, Forrest. There are 14 varieties and 7,000 cultivars of sweet potato. They probably had a common ancestor. Anybody want to guess what it was? A frog. No, a sweet potato. See, this is observable, scientific. This is demonstrable. I think everyone agree there are 14 varieties of finches. Okay? There's a huge scientific body of evidence to back it up. However, it's been tested and observed by thousands of people over thousands of years, millions of people. Dogs produce dogs, sweet potatoes produce sweet potatoes, and finches produce finches. But you think they've got a common ancestor, don't you? Forrest, I'll use small words and lots of pictures. All these lines they have connecting these to common ancestors are imagination. They're stupid. It shows your faith in the fossil record, which does not exist, and the geologic column, which does not exist. I know this fiction is your Bible. I hate to burst your bubble, Forrest, but there is no fossil record. There is no geologic column. All the layers are the same age. If the top layer is really younger, Forrest, stop and think for a minute. They say that top layer, the Holocene, is only 10,000 years old. But the Archean, look at that. 2.5 billion. Well, Forrest, the Holocene contains a whole lot of dirt. Where was all that dirt sitting around for 2.4999999 billion years? Did it come from outer space? The whole evolution of religion depends on this obvious fraud. There is no geologic column. If the layers are different ages, where are they coming from? Just because they've been teaching this since 1830 and a bunch of people fell for it, now they're taught that stuff and they believe it's true because their teacher believed it's true, doesn't make it true. And a fossil in the ground. All you really could prove is it died and was buried fast enough to fossilize. You could not prove it had any kids. You could not prove it had kids that lived. You could not prove it had kids that were different from their parents. Could you? You found a bone in the dirt. No animal or plant alive today is able to do that, produce something other than their kind. Why would you believe an animal that lived long ago and far away was able to do it? You keep relying on the fossil record you talk about, Forrest. There is no fossil record. And how come the fossils could do it, but the animals today can't do it? In spite of there being no evidence of animal or plant that did produce offspring that were evolving or different, wouldn't you have to get two of them at the same time to evolve? I mean, if evolution happened, what if you had the one animal change to something else in the fossil record, but he couldn't find a mate and he died? Would you have to get a male and a female? There's only two genders of animals. The animals know that. The humans don't understand it, but the animals understand it real well, okay? Okay? Wouldn't they have to be of the same kind? At the same place? Wow. What if the male evolved in Africa and the female evolved in America? Now we got to start over. Yeah. And the others would all have to die so the new improved one can take over the population. This is Adolf Hitler 101 right here, by the way. Let's pick the superior race and eliminate the rest. Watch my video number 5 for more on that. Why does evolution only take place here in the past where we can't see it? There's plenty of animals having babies today. One of our cows had a calf this morning. Guess what it turned out to be? Calf. I thought that was going to happen, and it did. Wow, okay? So why can't they do it now? Be studied and observed scientifically today. See, your whole relying on this fossil record is evidence that you have a religion, not science, Forrest. These slow changes from an amoeba to a dog to a sweet potato are only taking place in your hyperactive imagination and in the lying textbooks. All they are is charts with lines on paper, Forrest. That's not science. These family trees are nothing but propaganda and brainwashing and imagination from a hyperactive mind promoting his religion and a good artist. They have nothing to do with real science. So, Forrest and Dave, I was going to play a clip from Dave also, I couldn't find it here. They don't get it. All the farmers and dog breeders in history would testify variations happen if they're selected for, especially. They can be naturally selected or artificially selected. They both work. But they're limited. You're always going to get a dog, big dog, little dog, but you're never going to get a dog as big as an elephant. Certainly not as big as Texas. And they're generally detrimental to their survival in nature. How long would the Chihuahuas last in nature? How long would most of those dogs last? My wife's dog, how long would that thing last out there in the woods? 60 seconds. Dumb. None of their variations add information for us, none of them. They do not prove common ancestry from all life forms. I'm sorry, Forrest, you are dreaming, you have an imagination, you need whacked again with real science. Real science says dogs produce dogs, only and always. But you wish to imagine they came from a common ancestor, don't you, Forrest? Let's see, here's your family tree. You believe you're related to a dog, don't you? Oh, yeah. I know you'd say you would. I'm trying to help you, Forrest, okay? You've been brainwashed. You're an excellent teacher in some areas, but you are absolutely stupid in this one. There is no scientific evidence for these family trees. All these lines are is imagination. Stop teaching it as science. Each one of those things on that thing could probably, on that chart, each animal could probably have its own family tree. I don't know how many kinds of elephants there are, maybe 4. If you include the mammoth and the mastodon and the African elephant, Asian elephant. African elephant has big ears, Asian elephant has small ears. They probably had a common ancestor called an elephant. Doesn't prove they're related to a flea and a butterfly. Probably the butterflies that would have a family tree. Each one of these could probably be an interesting family tree. There are 43 different kinds of sunflowers. They might have come from a sunflower. But you think, you got a chart here showing the sunflower and the frog having a common ancestor. That's stupid. Hey, call 855-BIG-DINO, extension 3. I'll talk to you anytime, on or off the record. You want to schedule a debate with me? Call my tech guy, 855-BIG-DINO, extension 4. Say, Joseph, I want to debate Kent Hovind. There is evidence for evolution. Oh, yeah? Show it to me. Forrest, I'll tell you what, call Standing for Truth. They will keep a neutral channel, hit the mute button when it's my turn to talk, and the mute button on me when it's your turn to talk. No interrupting. Equal time. Show me the evidence for evolution. The ones you named, embryology, you should be embarrassed and ashamed of yourself for claiming that's evidence for evolution. Anyway, long enough, brother. Sorry for going so late here. This gets me fired up. I love the whack an atheist. I wear red just for that, like the bull, you know. Okay, questions and comments, brother. Let's hear them real quick. Yes, sir. Crybaby. Did you once say that a drop of water could cover the entire surface of the earth? Crybaby, how many molecules are in one drop of water? I said, and I was careful with my words, if you spread it thin enough, yes. Crybaby, do you believe the whole universe fit in a drop smaller than a drop of water that exploded? Do you believe all the planets fit in a dot smaller than a drop of water? That's what the evolutionists teach. Obviously, it is scientific. If you spread them out so all the molecules are spread out, they might have to be a foot apart. I don't know. I can do the math. Tell me how many molecules are in a drop of water, and we'll do the math on it. I can figure the surface area of the Earth, 4/3 pi r cubed. I mean, that's the volume. 4 pi r cubed, 4 pi r squared would be the surface of the Earth. So take the radius, almost 4,000 miles squared. That'd be 16 million times pi, 3.141592637, or whatever the number is. Who cares? And you could figure out the surface area of the Earth. And yes, a drop of water would cover the Earth if you spread it thin enough. That's what I said, and that is true. Think about it. Okay, next question. That evolution guy is going to go through thousands of people killed and millions of others sent to hell because he's lying through his teeth. I agree. And Forrest, you're lying. There's no evidence for evolution. None. Okay? Call for a debate. Okay, let's see. Mick. Hey, Ken, have you ever done any independent scientific research with Verify a Young Universe? Mick, I did a whole series on the scientific evidence of a young universe. For instance, the stars and sun. Sun's easier to look at because it's closer. They're burning up a lot of fuel. Sun's losing 5 million tons a second. Okay? That means if you go back in time, which we can't do, but if you can imagine going back in time, you'd have to add 5 million tons a second to the sun. How far back could you go before that would start to create a problem with the gravitational balance of all the planets and the sun's gravity? Because that's going to change the sun's gravity, you know. It's a function of the mass. The moon is getting further from the Earth, about 1.5 inches every year. Okay, well, how far back can you go bringing the moon back before that becomes a problem? Because of the inverse square law, like two magnets, gravity would act like inverse square law. If you bring the moon close enough, they're going to snap together. The Earth-Moon system can't be more than 1.2 billion years old. I show that on video number 1 of my series. So yes, I've done a lot of research on that, on all kinds of scientific indicators from space, from Earth, from biology, from geology. The universe, this Earth, cannot be billions of years old. And when you take away time from the evolutionists, oh, they cry like a baby with no pacifier. I know. So yes, the answer is yes to your question. Watch seminar part 1. Get the whole series for $50 if you want. Look at that, on the ball, Joseph. Get just seminar part 1 by itself for $10. Get them all. Watch them, copy as many times as you want, pass them out. Okay? Age of the Earth, seminar part 1. What is that, 2 hours long, almost? All kinds of scientific indicators on the age of the Earth. It's not billions of years old. Cannot be. Okay? Let's see. Genesis Baptist, what's the highest form of math you completed, learned? Trigonometry. I didn't see any use for any more, and I wasn't going into math. I taught math and science in high school and 3 years in college, but I taught algebra, geometry, and trig. You can get my, if you want to see if I know anything about it, let's see, physical science course, algebra course, earth science course, biology, get them all for $150. So I could go back and learn calculus if I wanted. I don't need it. I don't use it for what I do. But I could learn it. I'm pretty smart. Okay. Let's see. Dan dislikes the cold. Me too, Dan. I'm in Milwaukee. I want to come visit you soon. Is the weather nice there in the winter? Are there hotels nearby? Well, if you come to work and help us, Dan, you don't need a hotel. We got cabins here, and that's nice. It snows once a year for maybe a day, and then gone. Yeah, I love it. It looked cold today. It got down to what, 60? Man, had to wear a jacket. It's awful. Had to wear my socks. Yeah, okay. So yeah, we love it down here. Love the weather. Kent, The categories are not all purely man's arbitrary. They're based on actual data like things from morphology, physiology, embryology, and You're using embryology again? Genetics? The animals decide if they're the same kind. We don't get to decide. They decide. Now we're trying to put class. Are they trying to do that to us? Are the animals classifying, oh, look at them humans. There's a Chinese one and an American one and a white one and a black one and a green one and a purple one. They don't care how we classify ourselves. Not at all. Okay? Let's see. Joe, evolutionists have tons of evidence. Haven't you seen all the drawings? Yep, that's all they have. Tons of textbook drawings. That's all they've got. Imagination. Last one. Are all beliefs religious? Good philosophical question right there. Well, you have to define the words, I guess. Define the word religion, something you believe in without solid scientific proof. I believe there's a God. I've never met him, never seen him. You have to define the word science. Science is what we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. I've never observed God. I think I've never observed the people who made this pen. But I think it'd be logical to say somebody made it. I believe there was a designer for this pen. I believe there was a designer for this little notepad. I think there must have been a designer. Is that logical? I've never seen them. Could I prove it? I think all human evidence, all human experience would say, yep, that had a designer. So did that. So I think there has to be a God. I believe in that. I've chosen to believe. Okay, thank you so much. Sorry for going so long. Tomorrow night, comments on. Got a comment, send it in. Put it at the bottom of this one. I'll do those first tomorrow night. Thank you. See you.